Hi guys, welcome back. I am going to be doing something a little bit different today. I am talking about a documentary I watched yesterday. It is called Unknown Number, the high school Catfish, and it is on Netflix. And if you did not watch it, don't watch this video. Go back and watch the video, the Netflix documentary, and then come back and watch it. So if you guys have watched me before, you know that I typically, on my channel, I'm a platform where I talk about things that are going on in the church, the abuses, the victimizations, and the pastors who committing these crimes and immoral conduct and behaviors. And you might be wondering, so why am I talking about this? Well, there are some similarities because of the nature of the relationship. And if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. I'll get to it at the end. But I was really affected by this video, and that's why I want to talk about it. I watched it yesterday, and I woke up this morning thinking about it. So if you're new here, my name is Vanessa Johnson. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for over 26 years. Ironically, I used to practice, I'm in Florida now, I practice here, but ironically, I used to practice in Michigan. I was a prosecutor in Detroit, and obviously Michigan is the venue of the crime that we're going to be talking about. That's the subject of the Netflix documentary. So when I was a prosecutor, I worked in the Child and Family Abuse Bureau. I specialized in sex crimes against children, but I also prosecuted domestic violence, which included stalking. So I'm going to be talking about that in just a moment. So as of yesterday, I did not know anything about this case, this documentary whatsoever. My husband came home in the afternoon. He asked me if I had ever heard of it. And right away he said, and the mother did it. That's all he said. He said, the mother. I didn't know anything. And so when we were watching it, I was confused a bit at the beginning because the mother, who was the perpetrator, Kendra, she was in the video. She's in the documentary talking about what was happening when those vulgar, harassing texts were coming into her daughter. So that was very strange to me. That's the first thing. So let's talk about this video. There are so many things, and there are so many questions, and I have a lot of questions that have not been answered, and it is okay. It is okay. That's how we learn. I understand that. You guys always understand that. If you're watching my videos, I say that all the time. It is good that we learn from stuff, from other things, from each other. I am very much looking forward to, especially those of you out there who are psychiatrists or psychologists, and I know that you are out there, Joe, and I am looking forward to your comments because they are going to help us understand what we are seeing. So let's get into this. The first thing that I noticed about this woman, and her name is Kendra. She is now 45 years old. She has already done the prison sentence that relates to this Netflix documentary, okay? So she was 40 at the time, approximately 40, when she started these harassing and terroristic texts to her daughter, who was 13, 14 at the time, and her daughter's boyfriend, who was 13, 14 at the time. So Lauren and Owen. Her daughter is Lauren. Lauren's boyfriend was Owen. First off, I want to get this out. Let me just say this, and it might not be something that you agree with, but this was my first impression when I found out it was her, because of the nature of the text. They were so sexually explicit in regard to acts with Owen. These text messages escalated. At first, it's saying that calling her daughter ugly, saying what she's wearing is ugly, saying everybody hates her, saying that Owen hates her, saying that Owen is with her, the person who's texting, and that they're having all of this sex type of content that's very explicit. And in my mind, I'm thinking, she's 40 at the time. This is a child that she's talking about. I think that she's fantasizing these acts with him. I think she might be a pedophile. That's just my commentary, just my thoughts, just based upon that. That's what I'm basing it on. I do not know, but I just am thinking these are huge red flags. How she's talking, not to say that any harassment is okay, but there's ways to do it. And why she chose to do it in that manner, I think is telling. I think it is. So that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So she escalates in these, in the context of the text, and she's saying, like I said, why don't he hates you, he doesn't want to be with you, he wants to be with me. And it escalates to the point that she's essentially telling her daughter to unalive herself. Yes, she's texting her daughter to unalive herself. That's happening. And we have a picture, somewhat, of her in regard to very small snippets, which I wish that Netflix did a little bit more in this regard. There is an interview that was done by Kendra's cousin, who is Melissa. And Melissa is being interviewed by Netflix, and she says, and she's referring to Kendra, she said, my cousin Kendra she wants attention. She sought attention. Matter of fact, you could be interviewing me right now, Netflix, and if she was over there on the side, she would be dancing to try to get your attention off of me and onto her. So that is a window into Kendra that really wasn't fully explored. If anybody were to interview Kendra's family members, Kendra's prior employers, co-workers, people she went to school with, neighbors, we would get a better idea of Kendra. We don't have that much other than this, and maybe Netflix did that on purpose because it's so like in your face. It's like, oh my gosh, it's the mother who did this to the child, and there's nothing that leads up to it, which leads me to my next point. There is no way that this level of evil, psychopathy, whatever you want to call it, just started at 40 years of age. There's no way. Nope. I'm not going to believe it. I believe that there's other stuff that was going on and we just don't know about it. And perhaps that was intentional on the part of Netflix, that they just wanted to focus in on that. But remember, this woman is no longer in prison. She's out and about. That's troubling. Very troubling. Another thing that I thought about was, once I found out it was the mother, was a condition called Munchausen by proxy. And in fact, when my husband and I were watching it, I said that out loud. And shortly after, then the principal said it. And we both looked at each other. And then I looked it up today, come to find out, and of course, I said it before, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. Maybe I didn't say it before. Disclaimer, everything on here is commentary. I am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a behavioral analyst. I am an attorney. I am just offering my opinions, my commentary. So when that term came up, that was my first thought. I was like, she is exhibiting what I feel could be possibly Munchausen by proxy. And essentially, and when I looked it up, I found it doesn't even exist anymore. They refer to it as something else. Fictitious disorders, I think it is. And essentially what it is typically I would see it with mom and daughter or son, where the caregiver or the guardian or the mother or father, it's usually the mother, they are feigning or pretending that the child has a condition, and they'll even bring them in to the hospital, and there's no explanation for the symptoms, and so they have to keep coming back, and it's all attention on them. It's to give them attention. Oh, I've got this sick child, this is happening in my life. That's what that is. That was my impression. Okay, so I don't know if it holds any water. We have no idea if this woman has even been evaluated through a battery of tests from a mental health practitioner of any sort. We don't know. We're just left knowing that she's no longer in prison, which I find extraordinarily troubling. So Melissa gives us a snapshot, which that's telling, but I think she probably could have had more that she shared, and maybe not. Maybe this woman, Kendra, was so good at pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. I mean, we saw it with the husband. The husband had no idea, no clue. And we saw that body cam because when the detective came into the house and was asking for the phones, then the husband was questioning her about where she worked, and that's when she was admitting that she had been lying the whole time. She admitted that she's a liar. She was not employed at the time. Well, she was employed to terrorize her daughter, but she was not working for an employer, but telling her husband that she was. What type of situation are we looking at here? This woman was able to fool everybody into believing that she was working. So she's obviously good at that. So that could be an explanation as to why, if perhaps there were no red flags until now, that could be why. She could have been very good at that. But interestingly, I think that she was just never really questioned and never called on the carpet. She was never outed because of how she responded when the detective did come into her house. She really didn't have an out. She just admitted it. She didn't give a specific explanation. She didn't give a specific admission, but it was almost like she didn't think about it. I think, this is my opinion, she didn't think she was going to get caught. She was getting away with it for years. And remember, there was a couple, one of their daughters had some kind of bad relationship with Lauren, and they said at the end of the documentary, they even said, hey, to the police, hey, did you look at Kendra? Because she's a liar, something to that effect. They said something to that effect and said that there were some red flags with her. So obviously they were aware of some things. So I can't imagine that other people weren't aware, that the only people that were aware was that couple. I mean, obviously the husband didn't know, and that happens when you're too close to something like that. You don't see it. And if you've been watching my channel, you know, I mean, I was in a ministry. I wasn't there, but I was involved in it far away. I didn't know that the pastor was a cult leader. I talk about all of these cult leaders. A lot of people coming out, and they're talking to me, they're survivors. They didn't know. Didn't know. So when you're in it, you don't know. And I think that's what happened here. So when it escalated, then they decided to go to the school, which is odd. You know, I've talked about that. We saw that happen with Daystar. We see that happen, unfortunately, too often in ministries where there's a crime or some type of act, and instead of going to the police, they go back to the church. Here they went to the school. Churches and schools do not have the authority to investigate a crime. If you believe that a crime was committed, please go to the police. Please report it. So this has been going on for way too long. Can you imagine this poor girl's trauma? All of this time she's had to endure. And she's at the whim of her parents. And unfortunately, maybe her mother made the decisions. Maybe Kendra made the decisions. And then it was, I don't know who decided, but they go to the school. And perhaps it was Jill. It was Owen's mother. But then the school, of course, appropriately goes to the police. And now, remember, this is a small town. And perhaps they did not have the resources to do what the FBI did. But eventually the FBI gets involved and determines that the phone number that's sending the text messages are linked to Kendra. And that is when that officer or detective goes to their home. And that's where you see them in that room. And this part is very telling, folks, very telling. Because first off, she doesn't have a plan. Kendra's she's agreeing. Yes, she tells them where the phones are because they're threatening to turn the house upside down with the search warrant because they're going to search for those devices. But she gives them up willingly. She doesn't want them to tell her daughter that she's the one who's been doing this to her daughter. And when the daughter does come in, you'll notice that the daughter doesn't say anything. She's like a deer in the headlights. I mean, she's just processing, and she can't. She has, when her mother's holding on to her, her daughter's arm is on herself over here, and then her other arm is on the table. She's not embracing her mother. Her eyes, you can see she's looking at the body cam, probably not realizing that it's there, but not for that purpose, I should say. And the impression I got is like, help me, help me. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how to process this. Can you imagine what's going through her mind? She loves her mother. She knows her mother loves her. Her mother has never done anything overtly to harm her. There's been no evidence of that, right? And she's being told that her mother's been doing the most egregious thing that probably anybody has ever done to her in her entire young life of 13, 14 years. And she's hearing this. And then her father's talking as well. And her father's calling out the mother as being a liar. All of this is coming onto her at one time. So I believe that what happened was that the police then, they execute the search warrant. They probably get what they need, and then they execute the arrest warrant, and then she's arrested subsequently. What is she arrested for? 2 counts of stalking, felony stalking. And that is punishable by up to 5 years in Michigan. But she's also charged with another crime. It's a crime where they use a computer to commit the crime. And based upon that underlying crime, the stalking, it's a 10-year felony, which obviously has some teeth to it. Oh my goodness. So if I was the prosecutor and I would have this evidence, I would be looking for 10 years. Now, it's an indeterminate sentence up there in Michigan. If it still is, it was when I was there. So it would be like the minimum mandatory and then the mandatory. So I don't know what she got from what was said in the documentary. It sounded as if she actually served a 1.5 years. Perhaps her sentence was maybe 1 year to 5. I don't know what the plea deal was, but it was a plea deal. So why was it a plea deal? Well, it sounded to me as if Jill, the mother of Owen, wasn't quite on board just based upon her victim impact statement. But perhaps the prosecutor allowed a plea deal if Lauren was on board. That would do away with the need for the testimony. And that's traumatizing, as it's reliving what they went through. They'd have to go through each and every text, everything that they went through. That takes time. So people don't consider that a lot of times when they're dealing with, well, why did this not go to trial? Why are they taking a plea deal? Well, that's one reason why. In the context of one of the cases that I'm following, which is the Tom Cassie case at Faith Life Church up in Ohio, he is scheduled for jury trial on November 18th. He is charged with 32 felonies, and they all involved sex crimes against children under the age of 13, and there's 4 victims. Could he take a plea? Sure, if they offer it. Why would he? Well, it gives him an idea of, he knows what years he's going to get instead of rolling the dice and getting possibly life. If there is a plea deal in that case, I anticipate it'll be less than life. Maybe 15, 20 years, maybe, I don't know. But the victims would have to be on board with that. And there, again, a consideration for a plea deal is to do away with the need for the victim to testify, because it is traumatizing for a victim to relive it. Some, and I've had this happen with me on the cases that I had, some of them said it was freeing for them, that it was good for them to get on the stand and tell their side, their truth. But for other people, it's not. Everybody, they heal in different ways. Everybody heals varying speeds in different formats. And so one formula doesn't fit all. So in any event, what happened in this case, she got a plea deal. And they took off that felony that had up to 10 years off the table. So she pled to only 2 felony stalking charges. Well, she is a felon. So there's that. So it's very unlikely that she would be in the education sector. That's going to limit what she does, but it still remains, she's at large. This is somebody that is potentially a danger to society. So that was very concerning to me after watching this, knowing that she was already out of prison. Now, let's talk about her explanations or lack thereof, which did not make any sense whatsoever. Do you remember this? When she was being interviewed, and essentially she starts out by telling the examiner or interviewer, oh yeah, those initial texts, those weren't from me. Okay. I want to know, did you speak to your attorney about what you were going to say on Netflix? Did you guys go through this? And did you come up with statements, responses that might be considered logical and reasonable? And if you did, they weren't this, because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And everybody is going to see right through it. Did you instead just reject everything that your attorney and you spoke about, what you agreed on talking about, or how you were going to talk, because you are such a narcissist, so arrogant, that you just, and you wanted to do it your way, you couldn't help yourself. Perhaps it's that latter. Again, speculation, my commentary, but I feel as though if she did talk to an attorney about this, that somebody had to tell her, hey, this doesn't make any sense. And you know what's telling? Why was she even on it, right? Because she's a defendant. She isn't going to be compensated by Netflix for this. Now, I understand Netflix would want the other side to complete their story. I get that. That makes total sense. But Kendra can't get paid because she's a defendant as it relates to this documentary and what they're talking about. As far as I know, unless the law has changed or there's some loophole or some way around it, my understanding is there's no way that she could be paid for that. So like somebody that, commits a crime, they can't go out and write a book about it and get paid. They can't get paid for it. So her involvement in that, this is my commentary, this is just my opinion, I believe she just wants the attention. Oh my gosh, my family, my daughter, they're going to be talking about this on Netflix, no doubt. I've got to get in on it. That's my impression. I don't know. I don't know how it went down, but she's not going to get paid, and she's on there. So her explanation is that somebody else was texting her daughter, but then she started texting. Well, then what happened to that other person? Why didn't that person continue to text? Oh, did that person know that you were taking over now? And you were now in charge, and you were now delivering all of those vulgar and nasty text messages? Did that original person just stop? It makes absolutely no sense. And then, how does that explain the fact that you were so vulgar and disgusting and nasty and evil and depraved? She says that she took over because she wanted to see if her daughter and Owen were going to indicate or identify somebody that they thought it could be so that she could do further investigations, something like that. It doesn't explain your level of depravity. Couldn't you have done it in a different way? If that was the case, which I don't believe, because you've already established for us that you're a liar. You've established that for us. You admitted that you lied about having a job for over a year to your husband. It's on tape. 2 jobs, I believe it was, that he was asking her about. And she admitted that she lied and she was let go. I lied. So you lied. You admitted that you're a liar. And then coming on here and saying that somebody else started the text, not buying it, lie, my opinion. And then saying, oh, I just wanted to see if they were going to give an indicator as to who it was. Big fat lie. Because why did you continue doing it? And why did you tell your daughter to unalive herself? That was never, ever explained. Never explained. But then when she tries to give a further explanation, she says, and likens it to, you know how people commit crimes? Like they might drink and then they drive, but they don't get caught. Well, that's like what happened to me. It's just that I got caught. I committed a crime and I got caught, she said. That was so beyond repulsive, I can't even tell you. That's what she said. She thinks that, oh, she just committed a crime. She knew it was a crime. She's admitting it. And I got caught. That's all. And then when she's talking about her relationship with her daughter, she brings her daughter into it as if they're one unit. Why does she do that? Well, I think there's something there. Again, I'm not an expert. I don't know. But I find it very interesting that she did that. And this is what she did. So towards the end, they're asking the daughter about having a relationship with her. And the daughter said something, she can't talk to her now, but maybe in the future she will. She still loves her mother. And then when Kendra's talking about it, she said, we both intend on, or we both want to, talking about her daughter, that they're both intending on coming together at some point or having a relationship. I know we both, as she's speaking for her daughter, which is really weird because she hasn't even seen her. Now, could she be talking to her? That's possible. That is possible. But I just found it interesting. Why don't you just say what your intentions are instead of bringing your daughter into it? Perhaps there's a level of she wants people to think that her daughter has forgiven her and that she's not a bad person. Maybe there's that. But if that's the case, then you did something really, really bad, even though she's trying to minimize it and claiming that what she did is, very similar to somebody just drinking and driving and just, not getting caught. Extremely, extremely troubling. So those are my thoughts on this case. And I might have another video. I don't know, but I'm just processing it. And these are the thoughts that I initially had. And what stands out to me is that this woman is not in prison. What stands out to me is that there's been nothing in regard to other things that might be going on. I mean, it's concerning. If I lived in that community, I would be concerned. I hope that people are taking precautions, and I would imagine it, because we're just left with limited information from this documentary, which I believe should have been a docuseries. Not just like an hour and a half or two, whatever it was. I think it should have been broken up into like 5 segments and gone in a little bit further. I think that people would appreciate hearing about Kendra, hearing from her family members, people that she worked with, or maybe that is an idea for, them to do a sequel to. I don't know. But after this video, when it was done, I even said to my husband, I go, stay tuned. There is no way that this is it. I just can't imagine that this is it, in the context of learning that this is the only thing that she has done. That's what I was saying and referring to. I don't know if there's going to be another movie. How would I know that? But as it relates to what I deal with here, and as you all know, if you've been watching me, I've been talking about the David E. Taylor cult, and he has been indicted. His executive assistant, Michelle Brannon, has been indicted. They are waiting on arraignment. I don't know where they are. I'm assuming they've been transported up to Michigan, and because it's been over 3 weeks since their arrest and the raid on all of the properties in Michigan and Florida, 2 in Florida, in St. Louis, I believe, and in Texas. And we're just waiting on that. Now, we know it's a cult. And what's really interesting is that people still remain faithful to that cult. Now, there's something to be said about a relationship, that is established. That's how they have that hold on them. So as it relates to Lauren and her mother, Kendra, there's that relationship, there's that bond. It's mother-daughter. They are blood. And so there is that sense of loyalty that you can see in how Lauren is navigating this, that you can see what's exhibited by her in the documentary. She appears to be somebody that's doing the best that she can. She appears to be somebody that loves her mother, and she didn't backbite her or bash her in any way. Interestingly, she did not say anything bad about her at all. And you could see her baseline, because when the police officer came into the house, you could see that she was just processing. That's how she handles stuff, and she's just internalizing it. And she wasn't reacting and saying anything. Matter of fact, she's like playing with her toes, as probably as a pacifying behavior, because it must have been extraordinarily overwhelming to her. But that dynamic, that's the mother is obviously in authority over the daughter, very similar to what we see with the pastor and the church member. And just like a mother and a daughter, the mother doesn't think that the daughter doesn't think that the mother's going to do anything to harm them, especially if there's never been that established previously, which we never heard of that in that documentary. So this young girl, she has a good relationship with her mother, goes to her and trusts her enough to tell her what's happening, seeks her advice. So that's what's going on. And there is going to be a sense of loyalty. You could just tell in how she was responding that, she even said, I love my mother. And she does. I'm sure she does. But those stripes aren't going to change. That mother is not going to change. And I would be concerned with, as Lauren grows up and has children, if she allows those children to be around Kendra, I would have deep concern of that. In regard to, it's just that mindset, it's those mind games. And the people that take advantage of those relationships. So with Kendra, I believe that by saying that, remember what I was referring to, that we intend on coming together, like it's manipulation at the end of the day. Like she really believes that she can control that outcome over her daughter. Now, with pastors and their churches, the church member, they believe, oh my gosh, this is a safe place. I'm going to this church. I've been harmed by my husband or whatever it is. I've been harmed here. I've gone through trauma. This is a safe place. I can tell them and share with them what's happened to me. Unbeknownst to them, that gets used against them, or they're abused, whatever. All of those things are happening in the church, and they should not be. And there is that difference in authority. You've got the pastor who is authority over that person, and then there is another added layer in the church. You've got those that support the perpetrator and victimize over and over and over and over again the victim. They continue to victimize them by minimizing what happened, telling them they were a liar, telling them that they're breaking up the church, and things like that. I mean, that happens also in families as well. It didn't happen here. Thank God for Lauren. She has a father who supported her. And we saw that towards the end, they were hunting together and just spending time together, and it looked like their relationship was doing really well. So that is extraordinarily positive. Unfortunately, with churches, we are not seeing that. We're not seeing that at all. And we're seeing where these predators are being supported by other people, leaders in the church, allowing them to continue doing what they're doing, not requiring them to step down from the pulpit at all, not requiring them to repent, and just saying, oh, they should come back because, they're such a good speaker, they're so knowledgeable in the Word of God, and, that's their calling. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why we're not going to stop, because people are getting hurt, and talking about these things are what needs to happen. We're going to continue talking about these things so that people are made aware of what's happening out there. Now, in regard to the David E. Taylor cult, I did mention in my last video that I was going to be interviewing somebody this past weekend. That was my intent, and I spoke with this individual quite a bit, and this individual decided not to do the interview right now so that the trial that's coming up, that's going to be coming up in Detroit, is not affected in any way. And I totally understand that. I do, however, have another person that I'm going to be interviewing next weekend. Her name is Leslie, and she actually worked at the call center in Taylor, Michigan. So where that ministry started, no, I think it was St. Louis is where it started, but they did have a call center. They had a ministry and a call center in Taylor, Michigan, which is just like 15, 20 miles south of Detroit. So she was there with a friend of hers. They both went there, and I'm going to allow her to tell the story because it is very moving and touching. And so she has insight because she was actually there and saw the inner workings of that cult. So I will be talking about that in my next video, and I look forward to your comments here now in regard to what we're talking about, and anything that you can point out to me that you caught by watching that video and its correlation to what we're seeing right now in the churches. I think that would benefit myself, of course, but it would benefit everybody because, as you know, we learn from each other. So until the next video, I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you next week.